Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fusion. I am your host, Joe Smith, and I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I know it's summertime, it's hot outside, and there's a lot of other things you could be doing besides watching podcasts on social media. But since you chose to watch podcasts, I'm glad you chose me. So we're going to jump right into this conversation. We have a great show tonight, and the show is success stories that you need to hear. And to kick this conversation off, I'm going to reiterate a quote that I introduced you to last week, and that is, anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. Anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. Anybody from, type that. I want you to type that in the quotes. Anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. I love it. I love that. Because it just reinforces that feeling of belief and faith in yourself and in your capabilities and in what God can do through you. And so a lot of times we can get caught up in what we see around us and the failures that we've had in our lives, and the things that people have told us we couldn't do. We get caught up in those things. And so it's real easy to get discouraged. It's real easy to become intimidated by our dreams and our ideas and our goals. And so it's just good to just reinforce that mantra within yourself. Anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. It doesn't matter what your background is, what school you went to or didn't go to, what money your family did or didn't have. It does not matter. You are an unstoppable locomotive of potential and possibility. You are an unstoppable locomotive of potential and possibility. And you got to believe that about yourself. And just because you may not have accomplished the things in your past that you had hoped to accomplish, and maybe your timeline for life is off, maybe you thought that you would be further along by this age or that age, or maybe you thought you would have more to show for your existence here on earth. Don't get caught up in all of that. I've gone through that. Everybody goes through that. But you got to have those moments and then get off of them and move on and keep it cracking, keep it moving, keep it going, right? So anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. I want you to put that on your phone, put that on some piece of paper and post it on your mirror, whatever, to keep reminding yourself that you can do anything you want to do. Okay. The reason why I'm doing this show is because I talked about this Gary Vaynerchuk quote from before, where he said, if anybody else has done it with the same circumstances as you, then that's the blueprint. Whoa. Because so many times it's easy to feel like nobody gets you, nobody understands what you're going through, nobody understands what you've been through, nobody gets it. That's that feeling of isolation that the devil tries to bring into our minds to make us think that nobody else understands, nobody gets it, nobody, has ever in the history of the world been through what we're going through right now. And so it's real easy to feel isolated and feel hopeless and feel despair. But there's plenty of other people who have gone through what you've gone through. There's plenty of other people who have struggled with the things you've struggled with. So you have to avail yourself to success stories of people who have gone through things that are just as bad or worse than what you've gone through. And not only that, but figuring out how they overcame. All right. So we're going to look at a couple of stories. And I want you to understand that what you see and what you hear affects the way that you think. And the way that you think affects the way that you behave. What you see and what you hear affect the way that you think. And the way that you think affect the way that you behave. Okay. So that means that what you put into your eye gate and your ear gates are very important because they directly affect your thought process. Your thought process directly affects the things that you do or don't do, which can be good or bad. So the way that you overcome self-limiting beliefs is to constantly fill yourself and fill your mind with possibility, with encouragement, and with stories of success, of people who have been through things and have struggled and have fought, but came through. So the first person I want to talk about is Dave Thomas. Dave Thomas was an orphan. He didn't know his biological parents. He was adopted at 6 weeks old. And then after he was adopted, the only mother he knew, which was his adopted mother, died when he was 5. Okay. Now, you may not understand the turmoil and devastation that can cause a child to go through. I was raised by parents that were not my own. And even though they were amazing parents and directly responsible for who I have become, it's still a thing in you that, is curious about your original family. And do I have brothers and sisters out here that I don't know about? And, whenever somebody comes up to me and says, I saw this guy, do you have a brother? Because I saw this guy the other day look just like you. Now, 2 things with that. The first thing is that there have been times when people have shown me pictures of people that they said look just like me, and they didn't. However, it still makes you curious. Do I have brothers out here that I don't know anything about? I don't know. So those things can become very, they can cause a lot of turmoil in your mind and in your emotions. Okay, so that's a big deal. And many of you have gone through that, not knowing who your real father was, or not knowing who your real mother was, or knowing who they were, but not having a relationship with them, or whatever. Those things can be devastating. Okay, so Dave Thomas was an orphan. He never knew his biological parents. He was adopted at 6 weeks old. His adopted mother died when he was 5. He got his first job in a restaurant at 12 years old and was subsequently fired from that job. And he vowed that he would never get fired from another job again. He went on to go to high school and dropped out of high school. He said that this was one of his biggest regrets was not finishing high school. He became a head cook for a restaurant that eventually was bought out and became KFC. So from there, because he was so smart and he had so many great ideas, he ended up working directly with Colonel Sanders in KFC. And he was a very valuable asset to helping Colonel Sanders streamline KFC. He helped them streamline the menu and other things that he did to give Colonel Sanders that youthful perspective on how to be successful. Listen, you got to keep some young people around you. Colonel Sanders was in his 60s, I believe, when he started KFC. And so he needed somebody younger than him by his side to kind of give him ideas and, let him know what's popping, what's going on in the world. You got to have that. You know what I'm saying? Do not ignore your nieces and nephews and sons and daughters and little brothers and little sisters and so forth and so on, because kids know what's happening. And so sometimes you just need, even if you don't follow their idea to the T, sometimes you just need that perspective, especially if you have a business where you want to reach the youth. Then you definitely need their opinion and their input and their insight and so forth and so on. So he worked with Colonel Sanders. He went on to become an investor I don't know if you guys remember this, but before Long John Silver's, there was a to-go seafood place called Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. I remember it was one by me. I grew up on the North End in Detroit. There was one on Woodward near Palmer Park. I think right now it's a breadbasket deli in that building. So like Woodward between 6 and 7 Mile. It was Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. Our fish were pretty good too. They were pretty good. So Dave Thomas was one of the co-founders of that, and he was with them until 1969, where he went on to start a little restaurant that you may have heard of called Wendy's. And Wendy's is named after his daughter because he wanted to create an icon or image or a character that people could latch onto and buy into, which was something that he learned from being with Colonel Sanders. So he started Wendy's in 1969 and named it after his daughter. And he grew Wendy's and grew Wendy's and grew Wendy's until finally he died of cancer at age 69 in 2002. And at the time of his death, he had a net worth of $250 million. And there were over 6,000 Wendy's stores. Wow. So from being an orphan, not knowing who his parents were, being fired from his first job, not graduating from high school, he went on to create a fortune of over $250 million. Now, the reason why he was able to do that, number one, was because even though he didn't complete high school, he was able to lock into what his talent was, and that was in the realm of the culinary arts. And so his ability to lock into his ability to cook and also understanding the business side, he was able to maneuver himself through the ranks of, working with Colonel Sanders, to making enough money to be an investor in the startup of Arthur Treacher's, to going on and starting his own business, his own restaurant franchise, and grew it to over 6,000 stores. That's a pretty good story, and one of the things I want to challenge you with this story is, some of you have recipes, some of you can cook, you've thought about opening restaurants, you've thought about starting food trucks, you've thought about starting catering companies or whatever you do, just make sure that you think big. And one thing that I left out when I taught on thinking big is you think big, but start small. Think big, but start small. Start right where you are with what you have. So thinking big is how he got to over 6,000 stores. So always think of, how can I grow this? How can I scale this? How can I expand this? How can I turn this little business where it's just me, or this little hustle where it's just me? How do I turn that into a business, a big business that I can expand and grow and create wealth and legacy with? Okay. Next, we have John Paul Dejoria. He was born in the United States as an Italian immigrant. His parents divorced at 2 years old. His first job was selling newspapers. We don't have newspaper delivery boys anymore because everything's going online, everything's virtual these days. But back in the day, when you were little, that was most people's first job, was getting a paper route. And having a paper route was a big deal. That was some people's first entrance into having a business or having a job or whatever. And so that's where he started. Okay. He went on to spend 2 years in the Navy. And then after he got out of the service, he worked as a janitor, a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman, and an insurance salesman, among other things. He had a bunch of jobs, but those were just 3 that I picked and named. So he started out worked as a janitor, door-to-door encyclopedia salesman. Now, let me back up. Encyclopedias, for all my millennials and the young people that may be listening, encyclopedias were this big uh, collection of books that had information in them. So this was before Google. This was before Wikipedia. The way that you found out information was your mama or your daddy bought a volume of encyclopedias, and it went by the alphabet. So one book might be A through C, then the next book might be C through F, and then the next book might be F through whatever, all the way to the end of the alphabet. And inside of those books were all the information that you would now find on Google or Wikipedia. So, and you had to update them. You couldn't just buy one set and then that be the end of it, because as years would go by, more things would happen and more information would be discovered. So you had door-to-door encyclopedia salesmen that would come and sell you these books. So, Jacques, I just cleared that up because I didn't want young people to be like, encyclopedia. Now, what is that? And so he worked as a janitor, encyclopedia salesman, insurance salesman. Now, I pause because, when you think about, like, a lot of times I'm out, I'm at the mall, or I'm at the airport, or I'm different places, and I'll see somebody, emptying the garbage cans or whatever. And a lot of times I really want to like stop and talk to them and just ask them, like, do you know the potential that's inside of you? And do you understand that just because where you are today is emptying the garbage at the airport or whatever, that doesn't mean that one day you can't own one of these businesses at the airport, or you can't be an entrepreneur, or you can't be a millionaire. You do know that doesn't mean that, and I often wonder that, because I believe, here's what I believe. If you have a certain mindset and a certain set of principles and a certain amount of drive, it doesn't matter what your circumstances are. You're going to find a way to win. And conversely, if you don't have that, it doesn't matter what advantages you have, or what resources you have, or what money you have, you're not going to win. And that's the reason why I'm doing this episode, because I want to dispel this idea that just because you don't have this or have that you can't be successful, or just because you're stuck in some dead end job, or you're barely making ends meet, that doesn't mean that there isn't something greater on the other side of where you are. But you have to believe that anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. You have to believe that. So the fact that this man started as a janitor and an insurance salesman, just trying to make ends meet, doesn't mean that that was all there was for him. So let's go on and see what else happened. He went on to partner with a hairdresser named Paul Mitchell, and formed John Paul Mitchell Systems, which was a hair care product company. Now, this guy, Paul Mitchell, he was a hairdresser. He had created his own brand of hair care products. And I challenge all the stylists, hairstylists out there, and the people that own their salons, why don't you have your own hair care product? Have you even looked into it? Have you, because in our minds, that may sound like a daunting task, but you never know until you look into it. Have you looked into it? Have you looked into what it would take to create your own brand, your own concoction, your own mixture, your own things to create your own product? If not, go look into it. Okay. So anyway, Paul Mitchell had this line of product that he couldn't sell. He couldn't keep the sales going. Great hairdresser, and he had a great product. And when he would go do shows, he would promote the product and sell out of it. But then after that, that would be it. So John Paul came to him and said, okay, well, you got the product, you know the product, and I know business. I know sales, I know marketing, I know blah, 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 blah. Let's partner. And so he said, I'll take 30%, you take 30%, and then we'll save the other 40% for an investor. And so they said, we need about $400,000 to launch. And they had an investor who was willing to give them the $400,000. And at the last minute, the investor backed out. So guess what? They ended up starting the company with $700. I think Paul Mitchell had about 300, had about 400. And then John Paul borrowed 300 from his grandmother. So from 400,000 that they thought they was going to have to start this company, they ended up starting it with $700. John decided to live in his car so that he could afford to sink everything he had into the company. Remember, I told you all in the previous episode that if you have to move back home with your parents, if you have to downsize your house, downsize your apartment, yes, I know you worked hard for it. I get it. I know that house is your pride and joy. You love it. You work hard to get there. It's something you living in the neighborhood you always dreamed of. I get it, y'all. But now it's time to aspire to something bigger. And so to get where you want to go, you have to make sacrifices. So you may have to, just so you can have the money that you need, you may have to turn the cable off. You may have to stop getting your hair done and do it yourself. I don't know what you got to do, but you know, and you got to be willing to do it. That's the main thing. That's the main point. You got to be willing to step up and step out and make it happen. Okay. So he started this company with $700 and lived in his car. Now, it's something else about this story that I want to point out too. Paul Mitchell had a great product and was a great hairstylist, but he didn't know how to do business. Just because you know how to do something really well doesn't mean you're a good entrepreneur. Let me say that again. Just because you know how to do something really well doesn't mean you're a good entrepreneur. Just because you know how to bake cookies or you know how to cook, make recipes or make clothes, or you know, you got a great idea for this, or you're good at this or good at that, doesn't mean that you're good at running a business. So you're going to have to realize that and either educate yourself and develop that skill set, or you're going to have to take on partners. Now, Paul Mitchell had his hair care product all by himself. Then John Paul Dejoria said, let me be your partner. You're the creative, I'm the business head. And he took care of the part that Paul Mitchell wasn't good at. So sometimes you may have to do that. You know what I'm saying? Even though you're a great at cooking, you may not be good at running a restaurant. So you may have to take on a partner and say, okay, I'll make sure that the recipes are tight and the food is great. You make sure everything else is great. Or you have to hire a manager or whatever, but the bottom line is you have to acknowledge that just because you're good at doing the thing doesn't mean that you're good at running a business. Okay. So Paul Mitchell realized that. So they formed John Paul Mitchell Systems, and it became a success. They went on to open schools and all kind of other stuff. Some of you have seen Paul Mitchell hair schools and Paul Mitchell products and things of that nature. Then he went on to found a whole bunch of other stuff. He founded Patron, the liquor Patron. He founded that company in 1989, and some of you all have children to this day because of Patron. You have John Paul Dejoria to thank for that. He went on to become a founding partner of House of Blues chain, which I thank God that I had the experience of performing in some years ago. I think it was at 2005. It was the House of Blues in LA. And I had the privilege to accompany Dorinda Clark Cole there. They did a gospel thing every Sunday. And it was Chaka Khan and Dorinda Clark Cole. Imagine that. So it's closed down now, but there's still other House of Blues in other places. He's gone on to invest in, have interest in oil companies, Madagascar Oil Limited, Pyro Rum, a bison farm, Ultimate Vodka, different solar power and energy companies, Solar Utilities, Sun King Solar, Touchstone Natural Gas, 3-Star Energy System. These are all companies that he has founded or is a partner in. Diamond Audio, he owns a Harley Davidson dealership. He owns a diamond company called Dejoria, mobile technology developer, and on and on and on I could go. His current net worth is $3.1 billion. And if you've seen him, he's been on Shark Tank. He's one of the guest investors on Shark Tank. So he goes from being an immigrant and coming up in a home where his parents were divorced and being a janitor to now being worth $3.1 billion. Like Dr. Evil. $3.1 billion. These stories you need to hear. Anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. The last person I want to touch on is Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry experienced abuse as a child, both physical abuse from the hands of his father, as well as sexual abuse that came at the hands of family friends. He had been molested by 3 men and a woman when he was a child. He also never finished high school and got his GED. And what happened was one day in his 20s, he was watching the Oprah Winfrey Show, and he learned that writing was therapeutic because he didn't have a way to deal with all the pain and all the trauma from his childhood. So he was watching Oprah Winfrey Show, Oprah Winfrey, who later went on to become his friend. He learned that writing was therapeutic. So he started writing a bunch of letters to himself. And these letters that he wrote for therapy's sake became the foundation for his very, very first stage play, which was called Lord, I Know I've Been Changed. That was the first Tyler Perry stage play. Lord, I Know I've Been Changed. He launched this play in 1992, and it was a flop. He had saved up, he had worked and worked and worked, and saved up $12,000 to, in the play business, we call it mounting the play. So when you say mounting the play, that includes everything with the creation of the play, writing the script, getting the set designed, casting, music, finding a venue, blah, 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 rehearsals, on and on. And all of those things are called mounting a stage play. So to mount his play, he saved up $12,000, which was all he had. He was expecting 1,200 people to show up that weekend to see his play in New Orleans. 30 people showed up. He lost his shirt and everything else and ended up homeless. Now, I have my own story with that. I did a play one year. The very, very first time I did a play, was in 2012, play called Diamond Girls. And Diamond Girls was a success. I did it in a small venue. We sold out and literally had to turn people away. But because of what my budget was, I only ended up breaking even. Breaking even is good. It's better than losing. Of course, you always want to make money. But if all else fails, you don't want to leave owing no money. So I was like, wow, like, man, I killed the game. Ooh, I'm coming back next year bigger, better, and stronger. So I go and get a venue that is 3 times the size of the venue that I had the first year. So there's a venue in Detroit called the Masonic Temple. So at the Masonic Temple, there's a big side and a little side. The big side is like 4,000 people. The little side is 1,500 people. The first place I did my play seated 500 people. Okay, so I sold out 500 seats easy. So I'm like, okay, well, if I sold out 500 seats that easy, I should at least be able to sell out 1,000 seats, even if I don't sell out the whole 1,500. If I could sell out 1,000, I'm good. When I got an investor, so my investor was there the first time when I did it in 2012. He loved to play. Him and his wife loved to play. He, agreed to invest a certain amount of money. I'm good. So basically, he invested half the budget, and I came up with the other half. I had to come up with the other half. So we had a venue that seated 1,500 people. We had a budget that fit being in a venue that seated 1,500 people, and 400 people showed up. So my station was at the soundboard, and because now I'm working with, I'm the go-between between the sound guy and the rest of the production. So I'm standing next to the soundboard, which is normally halfway into the theater. So all the time I'm standing at this soundboard, I can see all the empty seats in the theater. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just rows and rows and rows and rows of empty seats. And when the people was coming in before the show started, I'm like, is some more people gonna come? It's so many empty seats in here. Is anybody else coming? I didn't know there was going to be so many empty seats in here. But of course, when you do the show, you got to focus on the show. But in the back of my mind, all I'm thinking about is I owe the entire cast money, and there's a bunch of empty seats in here, and I ain't got it. And so long story short, thank God that I have good relationships with people and that I have a good name out here, because, I had to go to the cast and basically say, look, I took a big L and I don't have your money. But if you give me some time, I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you. And I did. And so what ended up happening was the little bit of money that I did have, I paid the people who it was their first time working with me, because they ain't know me like that. So I gave them their money first. And then the people who had worked with me before and knew that I was good for it, I went to them individually and was like, yo, can you just give me a few weeks? And I literally every week I would work, and when I would get paid, I would give somebody their money. You know what I'm saying? Every week I would pay a person off, or if I could pay 2 people off, I would pay 2 people off. And it took me a few weeks to get it done. And one person actually got mad at me and we fell out. And so even when I tried to pay them, they wouldn't answer my calls or return my calls. And so literally it took us 3 years to actually finally sit down and talk and get it straight And at that meeting, I brought her money. So it really took me 3 years. It took me a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, to pay everybody in the cast off except this one person because we fell out. And so then I paid her 3 years later. So that's a lot. You know what I'm saying? I know that feeling of defeat, that feeling of worry and concern. I hated, I felt bad that my investor lost money because I don't like losing other people's money. And I felt like you believed in me. So if nothing else, I want to get you your money back. You know what I'm saying? So that's an L I took. So when he says he was expecting 1,200 people to show up, but only 30 people show up, I know that feeling. That feeling sucks. I had more than 30 people. But when the night is over and you owe thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to people, it's not a good feeling. And I ended up losing my house where I was staying. I was leasing a house and I had to move out of there. Almost lost my car in the process, because my thing is I'm determined. I mean, got behind in all my bills because I was determined to pay these people back. You know what I'm saying? Because there's some people that I know in this industry that have bad names, and I did not want to be one of those people. You know, I wanted people, because it's important, and that's a success principle. Keep your name good out here. Keep your name good out here, because you never know. I just got a call this weekend, a very major business call for something huge. And it was because my name was good, because this person would not have felt comfortable turning me on to this opportunity had I not had good relationships out here. Relationships are everything. You can't listen. The Bible says a good name is to be desired than riches. You can't be out here talking about forget what the world talking about all this. I don't care what nobody think about me. So what? I don't care. No, you better care, because sometimes your name being good or bad can mean the difference in you getting an opportunity or not getting an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen people, you know, and not only have I seen people, there's people that I won't work with because their name is bad out here. Okay. So you got to keep your name good. It's a good name is more valuable than riches. The Bible is absolutely right about that. Keep your name good. Keep good and sometimes you will have to take a L just to keep the name good. Sometimes you can't always get caught up in I'm right, so I'm not compromising because I know I'm right. I get it, but sometimes you got to be like, you know what? Just for the sake of peace and just for the sake of moving on and just for the sake of keeping my name good, I'm going to pay you the money, or I'm going to give you your money back, or I'm going to do whatever the case may be. You got to do that. You got to do that, because when people's names come up for stuff, I ask around, like, what's up with you? You know this guy such and such, what's up with him? Okay. And if the general consensus is that you're a dirtbag or you're a slime ball, I don't care how good you are at what you do. I can't do it. I work too hard for my stuff to get where I am, to gamble it on giving somebody a chance that has ruined their own name and reputation. I can't do it. And you can't do it either. So don't do it. Okay? Because last thing, because I know people that have that mindset of like, well, you can't go by what other people say, you know, you got to give people a chance. No, that's a loser mentality. No, you absolutely can go by what other people say, because what other people say is what this person has been guilty of in the past. And this is how they've dealt with other people. Why would you think they're going to do you any different? Now, depending on what it is, I have sat down with people and confronted them and say, hey, you know, I want to work with you. I want to do this, but I have a concern. I've been hearing things. Here are some of the things that I've heard about you, you know, this, that, and I lay it on the table. And if what they say sounds like some crap, then I take it as such. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't let them know. I just be like, oh, okay, got it. Or if it makes sense, then I'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. Because I've had people say things about me that weren't true as well. So I get both sides. But I don't, depending, like I said, depending on what it is, and if I've seen evidence of it myself too, no. If somebody always got a problem with everybody, they always falling out with everybody, cut it. Okay, back to Tyler Perry. He lost all his money and ended up homeless. Yes, he did. It took him 7 years to finally get a break. And that happened in 1998. He finally took off. Okay. Between 1998 and 2005, he had sold $100 million in tickets, $30 million in videos, and $20 million in merchandise. And that's all black money, y'all. That's all on the Chitlin circuit. What they call the Chitlin circuit. I explained to you all what that was before. $100 million in ticket sales, $30 million in videos, and $20 million in merchandise. He's gone on to do deals, TV deals and film deals with Lionsgate, TBS, Oprah Winfrey Network, or OWN, and Viacom. And in 2015, he purchased a 330-acre former Confederate Army base and turned it into Tyler Perry Studios, where TV shows like The Walking Dead and blockbuster films like Black Panther have all been filmed there, as well as Tyler Perry's shows. His current net worth is $600 million. So he went from being molested as a child, not graduating from high school, to going on to be worth $600 million. Anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. Anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. You got to believe that. You got to get that in your gut. You gotta believe that it doesn't matter where you're from, what you've been through. Anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. There's one more story I want to tell you, and I will tell this story in more detail. There's a guy named Richard Montanez. I want you to look him up. Richard Montanez. Richard Montanez worked in the factory. He was a factory worker at Frito-Lay. This is the guy who created, I won't give it away. Richard Montanez worked at Frito-Lay, and one day, because he's Hispanic, one day, him and his wife were at home, and he was eating a tamale. He was like, man, I wish they had some Cheetos that were like hot like this tamale. So what he did was, since he worked in the factory, he took some of the Cheetos before they put the cheese on them, before they put the seasoning on it. And he took them home. So naked Cheetos. And him and his wife just stayed there and experimented with different spices and different seasonings. And long story short, he created Flaming Hot Cheetos. And he went to, now this is a factory worker. Now he was like a janitor. And he said he wanted a meeting with the president of Frito-Lay. So he called the corporate headquarters, and long story short, he hustled his way into getting a meeting, a presentation meeting. And I'll show you more of his story next week. And today he is the president of Frito-Lay because he created Flaming Hot Cheetos, a factory worker. Anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. A Hispanic factory worker at that. Okay? Anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything, because Hispanics are people of color. They are discriminated against as well. Anybody from anywhere can accomplish anything. Okay? So I want you to be encouraged. I want you to know that you have the potential to do anything, to be anything. I'm going to be bringing you more stories like this because you have to study people that are successful if you want to be successful. Period. All right. Last week I told you about Millionaire Moves, 7 Proven Principles of Entrepreneurship by William F. Picard. I told you about The Wealth Choice, Success Secrets of Black Millionaires by Dennis Kimbrough. I told you about the top 10 distinctions between millionaires and the middle class by Keith Cameron Smith. And I told you about The Jewish Phenomenon by Steven Silbiger. These are books that I want you to read. Another book I want you to read is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Make sure you get that. So every week I'm going to be adding another book. I don't expect you to read every book in a week and be done with it by the next episode, but I'm just giving you some different books that you can change your library with. You know, change what you've been reading into these things. Not saying to stop reading other things. I remember somebody said to me, and I hope she's listening right now, because she's one of my success prodigies, or proteges, rather. She said that she believed that to be successful, all she needed to read was the Bible. I said, so you don't read any other success books or books on business? All I need to read is the Bible. Whew. That's so churchy. I just felt the quickening. Woo! That just felt churchy. All I need to read is the Bible. I said, ma'am, if you don't take your behind to Barnes & Noble and go in the business section to get you some books on business and success and things of that nature. And she did. She took my advice, and right now today she is a successful businesswoman. And I thank God for that. I thank God for allowing me to touch her life. And listen, you don't have to order these things on Amazon. There are Barnes & Noble bookstores still open. I used to hang out at Barnes & Noble's all the time, you know, till I just got busy and stopped going. So I read everything on my iPad now. But before, I would go to Barnes & Noble and get a big old stack of books and go sit in the cozy, cushy chair. And I would they have a Starbucks coffee shop in the Barnes & Noble. I would get me a coffee, sit down, and sometimes be in there for 4 hours, 5 hours at a time. Borders and Barnes & Noble before Borders closed. So whatever you got to do, read, educate yourself. What you see and what you hear affects the way that you think. And the way that you think affects the way that you behave. Period. All right. Hit me up at joesmithworldwide@gmail.com. If you want to reach out to me, or if you want to get one of our super cool, super funky t-shirts, fusion shirts, or hats, or whatever. I got to show y'all the hats. I got to show y'all the masks. I suck, but I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. So if you want to reach out to me at Joe Smith Worldwide, or you can just cash at me for the t-shirt. We got white, we got black, we got sparkly ones, we got all kinds of stuff. You can hit my Cash App. The t-shirts are $20. So if you want a t-shirt, holler at me. Or if you just want to donate and say, hey, I want to encourage you because you've encouraged me, feel free to do that. Also, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Millionaire Joe. Also, there is a Time for Fusion page. Go and follow that. As well as YouTube. I'm trying to build my YouTube page up. So please go to YouTube, like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like, subscribe. Like and subscribe on my YouTube page. And I want to build my numbers up there. And I just thank y'all, man. And spread the word. Spread the word. Spread the word. Let more people know. If you know anybody that's an entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneur, reach out. Let them know. Let them know Fusion is here. All right. I love y'all. I'll be back next week. And yeah, let's go out and be a success. Enjoy your holiday. Enjoy the 4th of July. Be safe. I know a lot of people, got their feelings about celebrating the 4th of July or whatever, but put your meat on the grill and things, and eat some steaks and some barbecue and some burnt hot dogs, if that's what you want to do. If you don't want to do that, then don't do that. It's that simple. Let me live. I'm gonna let you live. Let's let each other live. Let me live. I'm gonna have burnt hot dogs and red hots off the grill and steak off the grill. I'm gonna have it. So